welcome to the Brown Paper Bag series. I'm with your co-host, Mr. a.kolaproduction.
Thank you, and I'm here with your host, Mr. Brandon Lewis.
And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Robert Carswell, a former NFL player, now teacher, that came here to just give us a lot of information about his experiences in life and things like that. All right?
So let's see what's in the bag.
Let's check it out.
Get honest.
All right, let's see what we got. Guess I can't read it before I pull it out.
Nah, it'll be cool.
Black History Month.
Oh, we did that one before.
I thought we did that.
Let's do
You know,
one. Let's do
Another
one.
one. I was ready for that one.
He's ready. He's like,
yeah,
yeah,
I was ready. Rose.
Bessie DeVos. Oh, Bessie DeVos. Yeah, that's the new Secretary of Education.
Okay.
Right. So, you want me to start first?
Yeah,
Again?
pop it
Okay.
Yeah, pop it
So, when I think of Bessie DeVos, I think of a misguided individual that has no experience in education, that seeks to bring about reform through requiring vouchers for students to go to different types of schools. And what that's actually doing is pulling a lot of funds from public schools. And in many cases, it actually disrupts and displaces a lot of teachers. Sometimes some of the best and brightest best performing students are pulled out of particular locations because they're under this whole idea that if they go to a particular charter school or theme school or things like that, that they're much better. And it sort of breaks down the community. And so the problem that I have with Bessie DeVos, particularly teaching future teachers within the College of Education, the problems that I have with that is that I see all these brilliant students that will be excellent teachers, right? But yet they might not be able to pass a particular part of an entry sort of like test. It's called the GACE here in Georgia. And if they don't pass that, that means that they're not able to go on and actually get into the program. But they have all the skills and makings of being great teachers, but they might not be great test takers, right?
Correct.
But then you have an individual that is completely unqualified, that is at the top of the chain of the education sort of like space and arena. So it really makes me angry, and I really wish that people would continue to micromanage, like continue to see what she's doing, because I think that if we allow her policies to go into effect, it's going to bring a lot of damages to education.
Got you. Betsy DeVos. Prior to that word being put out the bag, I heard the name, but I didn't know like what all goes into her role and what she does. So with me not being completely informed, I would actually like to have like an open conversation about it and ask you questions from what you do know about her and like you just spoke, what's already like implemented in that position. Are you saying for upcoming teachers and teachers in the industry that she's kind of like making the format general across the board so anyone can get in and anyone
No. So what I was saying is that she's really big into like the voucher system to where students can go to other schools. Basically, it's like this whole choice sort of movement to where students have multiple choices to go to schools. Now, on one end, people think that that's a great thing, right? And in some respects, possibly it could, right? But what it does is there's this narrative out there that if you go to a charter school, that it's automatically better, right? But that's because there's a particular side, right? Primarily the conservatives or whatnot. And I don't have a problem with conservatives, but within this argument, there is some problematic conversations that need to be addressed, and that is that they've created this narrative that charter schools are great, come here, but really when you look at it, the statistics, charter schools really don't outperform public schools, but everybody thinks that they do. And so when you're if you have your child in a particular school that's in your community and it may not be performing well, then you're automatically going to think, I can take them to a charter school and it'll be much better, right? So what Betsy DeVos is doing, and quite frankly, her idea of how schools get funded, her background, and not really even having she's over a huge budget, talking about like billions of dollars, and she really doesn't even have the experience for that, right? And so, what does that say about our education here in America? To put a person that's like me, I've never built a house, but somebody's gonna hire me as the foreman. Right, just because I gave some people some money, she's always donated. She's donated a lot to the Trump campaign and so forth. And so, in order to scratch her back, they put her into this position, and she has no experience. But yet, we care about education.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the student is the one that's going to suffer the most.
Yes, that's right.
And I think she's capitalizing on perception as reality. And a lot of times that perceived notion that you were talking about, that the charter schools are better than the public schools. You know, I teach at a Title I school, and I have some of the best and the brightest. I heard the Georgia Teacher of the Year on your show,
Casey Bethel.
Right, Casey Bethel was talking about some of the best and brightest students that he's had has come from that Title I school program. But I have some extremely bright students in my class, and they do a great job. And I sure would hate to lose some students like that to the voucher program because their parents think that a charter school is better than a public school.
All right, thank you, and for everyone sharing their ideas about Betsy DeVos and, you know, charter school movement and really her lack of experience as Secretary of Education. So and the importance of recognizing that there's brilliance within Title I schools. So
Exactly.
so thank you for everyone sharing their ideas and comments. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Robert Carswell, who I've had the pleasure of knowing since middle school. Well, it started off because I was kind of afraid of him because he's always been this size and I always had that beard since I've known him. But we ended up developing a very close friendship, and I was very proud to see him move from being one of the best defensive backs in the country, right, coming out of Stone Mountain High School in 1997, going to Clemson University and bringing a lot of damage there. Clemson would not be where they are now if it wasn't for people like Robert that kind of paved the way and set that into motion. Playing in the league with San Diego Chargers, and now he's as he just mentioned, a teacher at a Title I school in South Carolina. And so it's been really interesting just to kind of see his trajectory and his life experiences. And so that's what we're kind of here today to talk about. NFL, what it takes to make it, and things of that nature, and just his experiences now in the classroom. All right, so with that being stated, we're going to go to our first question from Mr. a.Kolaproduction.
Jump right into it. First of all, welcome to the show. It's a great
Appreciate it.
pleasure. I am a heavy football fan. And just knowing that you actually played on the defensive side, and that's how your upbringing was, it just makes me crack a smile a little bit.
All right.
So I played football 5 years, but I can't brag about nothing. I wasn't like you were.
Right.
Brandon did mention you were the same size since what, middle school?
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. Walk around with a little t-shirt so you can see his arms bulging out and all that.
So my question is, did you always know you wanted to play football, and did you do anything while, probably since high school, all the way through college, besides football, up to the point to make you who you are today?
Yeah, man, you know, growing up, man, I was like Ricky off Boys in the Hood. You know, I walked around with the football, and that was something I really wanted to do my whole life, to the point where I would be in class in elementary practicing my autograph. You know,
Wow.
just, you hear people say you got to dream it first, and I actually dreamed it. I would go to bed at night, imagining myself, you know, playing in the Super Bowl, playing in big-time college football games, and it actually came true. And as far as getting prepared, you know, I always ate healthy. You know, my parents would tell me if you smoke or you drink, you know, that's something you wouldn't be able to make it to the NFL because you're damaging your body.
Right.
So I really take pride, and I've never smoked and never drank. Try to eat the right things, you know. So it was a nice journey, and at the end, to realize your childhood dream. You know, I can just remember like it was yesterday, standing on the sideline. We're getting ready to play the San Francisco 49ers in my first game, and I look across the field, and there's T.O., you know, Terrell Owens over there. And the next week we're playing Dallas, and you got Emmitt Smith out there,
Right.
you know, and he's out there trying to break the record and actually getting a chance to tackle Emmitt Smith. You grow up playing this guy on Tecmo Bowl,
Right,
you know,
right.
and you out here on the field with him. So it was a blessing, and I would say it was a nice journey, and I would do it again 100 times.
So the second part to that question was, while in school, did you like kind of diversify yourself with other areas besides football to get to the point where you are today in education, with the education background?
I did, man. You know, I graduated from high school with a 3.17 GPA, so I took pride in getting my classwork done. Plus, I had a dad like James Evans off Good Time. You know, my dad would literally come out there on the field and take me off the field.
Oh, wow.
If my GPA dropped below a certain level.
Oh, wow.
But that helped me to where I am today as far as working hard, always giving my best effort. And then also, you know, I diversified myself. I was always, you know, I was in the band. You know, unfortunately, I wanted to play the saxophone, but we didn't have a ton of money, so my next door neighbor had a clarinet. So I'm kind of yeah, man. So I'm in the stand, you know, in the chair playing a clarinet. But it helped me out, and those things as far as being creative inside the classroom, not being scared to step outside your comfort zone. It helps me out in the classroom today, teaching my second grade class.
So I taught in Title I schools for a few years, and I ran an after-school program for probably 10 years. And one thing that has always been amazing to me is that when you talk to young people, young males, right, young black males, let me be more specific. In my experiences, those are the main sort of demographics, the population that I spoke to, when I would ask them what they wanted to be when they got older.
Right.
I say about 7 times out of 10 it was going to be an NFL football player, right? And the other
NBA.
other 3 were going to be NBA, and then sometimes you would hear rap,
Rapper,
right?
right,
So you would hear those things. So one, I have like a 2-part question. One would be is, where do you think that appeal comes from? You know, and maybe you could speak off your experiences as well, as far as why so many of our youth want to be NFL players, right? So that piece, and what does it take to get there, that commitment? Because I've heard you complain about the young generation and all that stuff. So what does it really take to make it to the NFL? Because it was, I looked at a statistic that only 1.6% of NCAA players actually make it to the league. You're one of that 1.6%. So what does it take to get there? So again, what is the appeal, and what does it take to actually accomplish it?
Man, I think the appeal is with anything, the money. You know, a lot of times you see the flashy cars, you see the flashy jewelry, the big house, you know, they see the girls flocking around you. I think that appeal of that is what's enticing. And unfortunately, you know, with our young black males, they think if it's not entertainment or sports, that's their only way out. They neglect to look at being a doctor or being a lawyer or being a teacher or being, you know, whatever, an upstanding profession.
Right.
But I think that appeal of that money, and it's quick. I mean, you literally go from being broke, you know, in college, you know, eating ramen noodles and different things like that, to you signing your contract and you're gonna have a couple of $100,000 up to a couple of million in your bank account.
Right.
So that's really appealing, you know, and it was appealing to me. You know, that's what I wanted to be.
Right.
When they asked me what I wanted to be a football player. And then my second thing is, I told them I don't know what I want to be second. I just know I want to wear a suit. And I knew I wanted to wear a suit. Whatever it was, I wanted to wear a suit.
Right.
So, because you know, watching my dad, you know, my dad worked at Stone Mountain High School. He always wore a suit. You know, and watching him get dressed, I just say, well, I don't know what I want to be. I just want to wear a suit.
Right.
And then, you know,
Well, the second part of the question is, sort of what does it take to get there? Because I remember in high school, dude, I would see you waking up at 5 in the morning talking about, do I want to come and run around the mountain with you and all that stuff. So what
was your answer though, by the way?
I would never go.
No,
I tell him I'd meet him afterwards, but I would never participate.
Yeah.
So what is that like?
Man, it's big time discipline. You got to discipline, time management, and you got to be dedicated. You know, it's easy on Friday to go to the parties, you know, to do all that, but I found myself out on the track working out because what I did is I imagined it's a guy down in Florida, it's a guy over in Tennessee, it's a guy up in New York, it's a guy out in California, Texas. These are the guys that I'm going to be competing against with that 1.6%, and I wanted to be that guy. When my teachers, we had career day, and they would tell me the statistics, I would say, you know, I feel bad for those other guys, but I'm gonna be that guy that's gonna make it. And you know, you know, just talking about that now got me hyped up. You know, get up, run through this wall. But no, you know, you got to be dedicated. You got to be, you know, I look at today's generation, and you know, by far they're more athletic than what my generation was. And you go back 20 years before that, today's generation is more athletic. But if you think about it, they come up in a microwave generation where they want stuff to be right now. You know, and the parents are the same way. You know, I coach Little League up in South Carolina, and the biggest thing I got is if your child is not playing, they ready to move to another team where they can play. But what you take away from your child is, when I got to college, all the things you said coming out of high school, I was 5th string strong safety when I first showed up at Clemson. And that was demoralizing. I told my parents.
As a #1 DB?
Right. I mean, they had me 5th string, but I was used to working, and we call it chopping wood. I was used to putting that work in, and I became, you know, obsessed with becoming the 1st string strong safety, and I ended up starting my freshman year. So, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, but you just don't see that work ethic with today's generations. But the ones that have it, those are the ones you see on TV, and they're going really far.
So that's my first question. It was a 2-part question. All right. My second question is some other research that I was looking at stated that out of all the NFL players, 80% end up broke or in like dire need, like financially, within 2 years of exiting the league.
I believe it.
How can that be if you're making millions of dollars and so forth? Like, because I think when you first got to the league, you told me that they sat you all down and they go over some type of crash course about like what you should do with the money. So what happens?
You got to go to a rookie symposium when you first get drafted. And of course, they got all the financial advisors. But again, you go from being broke to now you got millions of dollars in the bank, or you got a couple $100,000 in the bank, and you're living at your means. Or it's no different than the lawyer or the teacher out here that's making $30,000 but spending $29,000. And you know, as an NFL player, you don't think that you can play for 10, 15 years. But you know, they say the NFL stands for not for long. And so, you know, you get out there and you tear yourself up, or every year, those scouts that surround the field, their job is to go out and find guys to replace you. They're not considered a good scout if they can't find guys to come in out of college every year and replace you. And every year you got to compete for your job. You know, that's the part that these young generation, they miss. They see Sunday, you know, they see the guys driving away from the stadium, but they don't see the hard work and the dedication that goes into it. But man, I was fortunate enough to have Ryan McNeil, Alex Molden, Rodney Harrison, some of these older veterans that kind of took me under their belt. You know, Ryan McNeil always talked about investment. He had an investment company, and he always talked about investing your money, putting your money away. And Ryan was real frugal. He was one of the highest paid guys on the team. But you look in the parking lot, he didn't have this big flashy car.
Kind of Marshawn Lynch or something. I've heard.
Yeah. I mean, you look at his wrist. He didn't have no big diamond Rolex. He had a regular watch on. And he said one day, you know, the NFL is going to leave you. I mean, point blank. And you must be ready. And I think, you know, collegiately, we got to do a better job with our colleges getting these guys prepared for life after football. I think we do a great job of getting them degrees. We do a great job of making sure they go to class. But I think you must have something in place to teach these guys, even the ones that don't go to the NFL. You're talking about guys that dreamed about being in the NFL since, you know, coming up. And now all of a sudden they get to the point where they can't play no more. They're telling you you're not good enough to go on and play. Now you got that depression setting in where they can't play no more. And they sit down for a couple of, you know, months or so to try to get themselves together.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, that's really the big thing going out there. These colleges and, you know, the NFL does a great job, but, you know, you're 21 years old, 22 years old.
Check.
You got that check and it's rolling in every other week. Man, I don't need to go sit down for that. You know, I'm making money. Listen,
I'm not thinking about the future.
You're bringing in $60,000, $70,000 every 2 weeks. You know, I blow through 60 and I got another coming in next other week. You know, I'm immune to that. I'm gonna be here for a while. And, you know, I bought this house out here and I bought this car, but that contract is not guaranteed. The moment you're cut from that league, that's the end of your money. You might get a little injury settlement. You might get that pension down the road, but that's the end of your money. Whatever you got in the bank, that's what you got. So those guys, they got to do a great job getting them prepared for that.
That's crazy. So unfortunately, your career was cut short due to injury.
Right.
The worst injury I ever had was like a wrist contusion and a dislocated collarbone. But you actually had, what was the injury, first of all?
I ended up chipping a bone in my knee, and they went in and they repaired it. I went back out against the Texans down in Houston and tore it up again. And, you know, I went into surgery thinking, you know, go ahead and repair it again, put me back out there. And the doctor unfortunately told me, hey, you know, you can squeak out another year or two. I was 25 at the time, and he said that, but if you do that, you might be putting yourself in a position where you'll be walking on a cane by the time you're 30 years old. And for, you know, a 25-year-old laying on the table, my first instinct was, hey, fix it up and let's get back out there. But, you know, I thought about it, and one day I wanted to have some kids. I wanted to have a son or a daughter, and I wanted to be able to go out there. You know, I watched the Cosby Show growing up, and I wanted to be like Bill Huxtable, going out there playing basketball with Theo. And, you know, but I told him it's probably best we go ahead and fix it, and I'll just go ahead on my plan B. So, yeah, that was my injury.
That was actually the second part to my question. Did you have a plan B prior to the injury? And also, did you feel like you really wanted to pursue it when it happened, or did it take you some time to get over it and actually mentally really position yourself to leave football?
Man, it's funny you say that. Actually, it took some time. You know, again, 25 years old, this is what I wanted to be my whole life. I mean, and the dream was there. I mean, the game, I was actually getting playing time. I was playing behind a great safety, Rodney Harrison. learning from him. I had Junior Seau on my team, LaDainian Tomlinson, Drew Brees, and then for it to get cut short like that, I actually went back to Atlanta, and I stayed in the house for about 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, man, that's when that Xbox One came out, and PlayStation, and I bought both of them, and I was just in the house. Now, I got real good at Madden.
Yeah,
I had a plan B, and it was just like what I said in elementary school. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to wear a suit, but I called back up to Clemson, and I left in good standings. I told them I wanted to come back to school, and they let me enroll, and came back and got my degree in elementary education. But I didn't have the patience at that moment to go into the classroom. So what I did is I went and worked with GlaxoSmithKline doing pharmaceutical sales. Did that for about 4 years, and then I stepped out and opened up a medical equipment company. So yeah, but it worked out. But trust me, it wasn't just okay, what's next? It took some time to have that divorce from NFL, because that was been a part of my life for so long.
Because I can imagine that discipline and the work ethic that you said you had all the way to get to that point. That's not something that took a lifelong, it's a lifelong thing. So I didn't think you could really get over it pretty easy.
Right.
One thing I just wanted to clarify is that you had talked about the injury that you sustained, and one thing that I don't think any players really go into it thinking I might get hurt one day and things like that. But I was going to ask you, you've had a lifelong of playing football since you were a toddler, right? Playing, walking around the football and things like that. Tell me about your wear and tear. Like, how are you now physically with post-injury and things like that? Because I've heard you sort of mention some things just in conversations, and I wanted to kind of share. How do you feel now in your body and your knees and stuff?
After football, during the course of my whole time, you're talking about 7 or 8 surgeries that I had. I had 2 on this knee, and then this knee here had to overcompensate for this knee, so I had 2 surgeries on this one. I had thumb surgery, tore my rotator cuff, tore my labrum. So these are different surgeries that I had throughout the course of my football career. But now, I'm like an old person. When it's gonna rain, my knees hurt, my shoulders hurt. I got a daughter that's 7 years old. When she run at me and I go to pick her up, I can't lift her up but so high, because if I get her too high, it's gonna hurt my shoulder while I tore my rotator cuff. In the morning time, those first 5 or 6 steps, getting out of bed, I'm real stiff, going to get ready for work. We had a student-teacher basketball game. I played in that in October. Now, I look like Jordan out there during the game, Jordan game 7. But after the game, man, I was looking like, knees hurt.
Feel hard, right?
Yeah, I'm looking like Patrick Ewing with all the knee braces.
He said,
yeah. But I think the next couple of weeks I was in class, and I had my chair just kind of scooting around class like that. But, but I'm not going to lie to you, man. The ride that I had, it was amazing. The relationships, the teammates that I was able to make, the platform that I had and was able to impact so many youth, I'll do it over again, I had an awesome ride. I don't have no complaints. For God to allow me to be able to touch my dream, and that's something, when I tell you, I really dreamed about that every night, and I prayed about it. I wanted to be in the NFL really bad. I had a cousin that played for the Redskins. He won a Super Bowl. Every family reunion, I'm running up behind him. His name was Virgil Say, and asking him a million questions about it. Yeah. So just running up behind him, man, and asking him a bunch of questions. Asking him, can I wear a Super Bowl ring? And but to have that, to realize my dream, it was an awesome ride. I don't have any complaints.
So speaking of that, accomplishing the dream, I'm sure the incredible rush that you had when you were on the field, that adrenaline and everything like that, right? Let's talk about how that might be similar to the classroom. What type of rush do you have now that you're in the classroom? Like, are there some feelings that, you'll still get just as, exactly, it might not be like the Friday Night Lights type stuff, but I know that there's a feeling, because you're a very passionate educator, and I hope you don't mind me saying, but you call me, regularly, and you talk about the very innovative things that you're doing in the classroom. So I know that spark is lit, so I want you to kind of talk about that,
Man, it's funny you say that, when I got cut, the first person I called was my mom, and I told her, hey, I got some bad news, and she was like, what, you okay? I said, well, I just got released today, and I just wanted to let y'all know that before it hits the ticker tape, which like literally 20 minutes later was on the bottom of the screen. But I told her, I don't know if I can find another job where I had that passion, where I can kick the sheets off in the morning and it wasn't no problem going to work. You know, pharmaceutical sales, it was okay because I'm a huge competitor. I hate to lose at anything, and I love that part of the pharmaceutical sales. Doing medical equipment, that's another part. I love helping people. But when I stepped into the classroom, and I knew it was time and it was ready, because I've been around kids the whole time, from a little league coach. When I was out in San Diego, I did youth camps. I partnered up with Gatorade and Reebok, and we ran youth camps throughout the inner city of San Diego. So to step back into that classroom, I think the first time when I had a student that couldn't add some stuff up, and I sat there and worked with her for the last, for 20, 30, 40 minutes, and she finally got it. And you saw that light come on in her eye. I mean, it wasn't no interception in the Super Bowl, but I'm not gonna sit here and lie about that. But to see that light come on, that lit my fire to want to see that all the time in my students. And growing up, the way I teach is the way I wanted to be taught.
That's right.
I hated sitting at the desk. I hated doing worksheets. I hated doing notebook checks. I hated that at school. I didn't do well at that. So I don't have my students do none of that. We don't sit down at the desk that long. I'm at a related art school where we integrate the arts with the education. And so I'm big on that. We doing a lesson on gravity. I bring my golf clubs and we go in the back, let the kids hit golf balls. And we talk about why the golf balls are falling back down to the ground. And we talk about friction. I set up a field trip to the bowling alley and we bowl the ball and we talk about friction as it's rolling down the bowling alley.
Wow.
And we just try to integrate that stuff. That's the same way I want to be taught. And it's interesting to me. So if it's going to be fun to me, I'm going to display that. My energy level is going to be really high and the kids feed off that. Sort of like being on the football field. I view myself as a leader on the field. So if I'm down in the secondary, my team is going to be down. But if I'm high and I'm getting out there and I'm patting everybody on their helmet, getting them up, they're going to be up too. And I'm demanding that everybody perform at that level. It's no different in the classroom. I challenge my students the same exact way. And I demand that they give the highest level. And they know they better not quit. So we have a good time in the classroom. And, I kick the sheet. Now, there's some mornings I don't kick them sheets off. And I'm like, man, I know somebody playing a trick on me. But for the most part, 99% of the time, I'm looking forward to getting to school, and that energy is there for my kids to come through that door, so.
All right, so we'd like to just say thank you from the Brown Paper Bag for participating in this interview. Very informative, and your experiences, I think, are going to resonate not only with people that might be interested in football or whatnot, but teaching and pharmaceutical sales. You've done a great deal of things, but I think the number one thing that you evoke is a lot of passion, right, with everything that you've ever done. And so I just hope that would translate to maybe someone else that needs to be, sort of picked up or searching for their passion, because you're definitely passionate in all that you've done. All right, so we'd like to say thank you, and Cola's going to close it out with the Cola's going to close it out with the last
week,
piece.
right?
So normally for the end of our show, we like to have any closing remarks you may have,
Okay.
and a portion that we call the book of the week.
Okay.
And where the interviewee recommends a book that you might be reading or that might be influential to others who may want to read something.
Okay.
Or, so that's whatever you got.
Okay. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about is I had a question for y'all. What made y'all want to start this show? I mean, I find that interesting. I mean, for y'all to really, step out there, and I commend y'all on that. But what made y'all want to start the show?
I'll do
Cole's gonna be mad. We changed the format.
We don't have to make people come and ask us that
Right.
question.
That's what
we have people ask us off the camera or outside of the show, but we never had someone ask.
Well, I ain't want to break no rules.
That's cool. So long story short, because it is a long story.
Right.
I have a passion for helping people as well. As an individual, I ask the question, what inspires others to do what they do and help the people they help or what they do in life. So I picked up a camera like a year ago, and me and Brandon had a relationship at our school, our college we went to. And I used to do events. I had 2 organizations. He used to be on the panel at certain events that went on at school. And we never knew each other for what we did personally. So we fast forward a little bit. We had an event together where he saw me behind the camera, and he didn't know I was a videographer. And I saw him in front of the camera doing what he does, which I knew about, but he doesn't know the opposite end.
Right.
So after that event, he approached me, and then I'm gonna let you continue from right there.
So we just had a conversation. I let him know that had an idea in which I wanted to bring positive stories to just the population, particularly when you're dealing with minority groups or groups that may be identified as oppressed, whether it be economically, whether it be racially, whether it be gender, or whatever it may be, and so I wanted to get different types of stories out there. And I'm going to be honest with you as well. One thing that I hate is that I'm going to put into a racial context, so you have to forgive me, but like one thing that bothers me sometimes is that so many of us are quick to watch some of these shows because they're entertaining, such as like some of the Real Housewives of Atlanta and things. Yeah. But you're putting out all these different images, right? And sometimes we feed into that and we start to internalize some of these images that are projected for us to consume, right? So it's sort of like it's creating an identity for us. And I think that there's so much more to our story than just that one portrayal of that identity. So because I'm thinking about all the people that I know that are like very successful, and then not only that, and I'm not talking about successful just money-wise, but successful in however you look at it, right? People that are just really big into their families, all these different, and I know a lot of people that are just doing really cool things, and so I was like, you know what? Those are the stories that I want to share. Those are the images that I want to see projected, right? And I'm not saying if you watch other shows and bad, because if they're on, I might sit down because it's entertaining. But don't let that be the only story, because for since the dawn of time of saying that black people walked around with apes in Africa, and that was some of the stories that were being translated back to the Europeans and so forth. And if you have sex with a black male, you're gonna have an ape baby and all this stuff. There's always been a direct effort to sort of change not only like who we are, what we are, and things like that, and it's really for our negative, while other people are capitalizing for profit off of those stories. And so I'm like, I wanted to bring something different. So I talked to Cola about it. Cola was like, it's a plan, it's a wrap, and the reason why we came up with brown paper bag is to sort of dismiss, the brown paper bag is this idea that if you were darker than a brown paper bag, then you would be more oppressed within black communities, whether it be like the church, fraternities, sororities, and things like that. And so we're using that title to break down all forms of oppression, to rewrite, to change the narrative, right? All right, now back to our original question.
That's cool. I had to turn it on y'all.
I appreciate that.
No, that's cool, man. I really commend y'all on that. But, one of the things I've been really reading is a little bit different. Is Ancestry.com, and we pulled that first thing with Black History Month. But what happened is, I was ready for that, man. And we just came out of Black History Month. I had to teach that to my class, and they were so intrigued with slavery. And as a second grader, you kind of don't know how to answer that. But we broke it down, and we did a really cool Black History project where I took this app, and it's called Face Off.
Mm-hmm. I know Face Off.
Yeah, and I put my students' face on lesser known Black history figures, and they had to become that figure and bring that figure back to life on that particular day. And we published a book, and they had an author reading for my kids, but it was a really good time. But I wanted to find out more about my history, and so I got me a little thing on Ancestry.com and started doing some research, and I was able to track my, with African Americans, we can only go back so far, but I was able to track on my mom's side to a plantation in Alabama, and from my dad's side to a plantation in North Carolina. And one of the cool things is slavery was abolished in 1865, and as we know, the Jim Crow laws that came out that really restricted African Americans from progressing and doing, moving forward. But I actually found that my great-great-grandfather purchased a house back in 1867 in Columbia, South Carolina, and I was actually able to go into the courthouse and get the actual deed that he signed. I saw his signature, on the paper. Wow. And that was powerful, and I brought that in and shared that with my class. But what that does, is funny, you talk about identity and the story that's being told, but for me, some of the difficulties that I had, getting injured in the NFL or different things that happened throughout the course of the day, I said, if my great-great-grandfather can go through this, come out of slavery as a slave, purchase a house 2 years later, he worked as a railroad porter, that sounds like a good job, but if you do research back then, that was one of the worst jobs because the way you were treated, back then. But for him to be able to do that and overcome that, I look at the things that I go through and I see where I came from and I say, well, you know what, that's nothing compared to where my lineage comes from.
Right.
And that's knowing my story. So just getting my kids or any of the youth to realize their story of where they come from, and that they come from a line of kings and queens, and that they can do anything. And these little small obstacles that's put in front of them, look at what your lineage has said that you can do, and look what they had to overcome. So I would say Ancestry.com, but another book that I was reading is a book on classroom differentiation by Dr. Barter. And what happened is, you know, with me leaving, graduating and spending 10 years out of school, doing different things and then stepping back into the classroom, some of my practices weren't as polished as they needed to be, but this book on differentiation helped me out to realize that you got different learners in the classroom, and to be able to tailor my lessons for different learners. It's not enough just to get them to stand up and do different things, but to tailor it and give them different choices on how they learn. It kind of helped me out a whole bunch. And it helped me reach my students because my test scores actually tested one of the highest in the school. So
Wow.
yeah, so appreciate that. But,
Robert Carswell, man, you're an amazing individual, and continue to turn those light bulbs on. I know that the not only are the students lucky to have you, right, because you're a very passionate and determined teacher, so that's greatness. You're accomplishing great things, but I know that you're also lucky to have them.
I am, man.
So,
I learn from them and they learn from me. So it's,
Beautiful thing.
we truly appreciate it, man.
Appreciate that. And appreciate y'all. Man.
Love the
Appreciate
pleasure.
that.
All right,
Yeah.
Tune in next
Paperback.
week for another episode of Brown Paper Bag.